Hi everyone and welcome to my recipe video. Today I'm going to be making Croque Madame. So why Croque Madame? For a few reasons. One, like the œuf mayonnaise, this is a dish that features fresh farm eggs. So Croque Madame is actually a variant of Croque Monsieur, and it's basically Croque Monsieur, a grilled ham and cheese sandwich with a fried egg on top. And in French, whenever you put a fried egg on top of something, they call it an œuf à cheval, a horseback egg, because it's like you're placing the egg on top of a thing. So if you've ever seen, for example, steak tartare, for example, is often served with an œuf à cheval. This is another chance to use eggs from our chickens. Two, like the œuf mayonnaise, this is a dish that features one of the mother sauces. So many preparations of Croque Madame include bechamel or bechamel derivative sauce as part of the enriching of the sandwich. I'll talk about that in a minute. And finally, like the œuf mayonnaise, this is a classic French menu item. You'll see it in Paris, in particular, in almost every cafe, brasserie, bistro, many restaurants. You can even get it in bakeries and grocery stores. It's a very classic dish. So what exactly is a Croque Madame? First of all, as I said, Croque Madame is a variant of a Croque Monsieur. Croque Monsieur, in its most basic form, is a grilled ham and cheese sandwich using specifically what's called pain de mie, or what we might call white sandwich bread in the US, as opposed to baguette, right? So most of the time when you talk about sandwich in the French culinary tradition, it's going to be a baguette with ham and cheese and served cold. So the things that make Croque Monsieur and Croque Madame different is the fact that they are on pain de mie, on this soft white sandwich bread, the fact that they're grilled and melted. Now, over time, the Croque Monsieur has evolved, and so people have started putting additional things inside of it. And the form that you'll see the most commonly in like cafes and brasseries in Paris is the white bread with a layer of bechamel sauce, ham, cheese, another layer of bread, and then sometimes more ham and bechamel, and then cheese on top, and then it's put into the broiler and broiled until the cheese becomes brown and bubbly and tasty, kind of like what is also called in a lot of French dishes a gratin. And there are a whole bunch of other variants. If you put a tomato in it, it's called a Croque Monsieur Provençal. If you put blue cheese in it, it's called Croque Monsieur Auvergnat, because Auvergne is where the best blue cheese is made. And it's just a whole number of variants all over the country. But the one we'll be focusing on today is Croque Madame. And I'll be doing the classic. I'll be doing it with the bechamel sauce and with the egg on top. A little bit about the history and this kind of a weird name for a sandwich, Croque Monsieur. Why is it called a Croque Monsieur, and what's its history? What do we associate that sandwich with in French culture? So the sandwich literally translates as bite man or bite sir. So croquer is the verb to bite into. Croquant is the adjective for crunchy. And so Croque Monsieur, if you interpret it literally, is like bite into the man. But it could also be bite, croque, comma, monsieur, commanding a man to bite. So that's the etymology. So it's a very strange name for a sandwich, and French people have actually puzzled about the origin of the name, and there are some books that have different theories. And one of the theories that you see the most widely is that in 1910 there was a cafe on the Boulevard des Capucines called Le Bel Age, and the cafe owner was this kind of eccentric man who liked to claim that he was a cannibal. His name was Michel Lunarca, and the historian René Girard wrote a book about the origin of these French food terms, and he cites this story of Michel Lunarca claiming that his sandwiches had the chair de monsieur, right? So Mr. Flesh, But that's not likely the origin of the term Croque Monsieur, because actually it's attested much, much earlier, almost 20 years earlier, in an 1891 journal called the Journal Athlétique. It was an athletics journal, and there's a story being told by someone about a team trip to England, and they get hungry, and they happen to have the ingredients to fry their own grilled cheese sandwiches, and one of the participants in this activity said, let's make a croque monsieur, and use the term croque monsieur. There is one theory that I like, which is that around the same time period there would have been a large wave of migrant work from Provence, from the south of France. And in Provence there's a tradition of a type of sandwich called a croque, and it's a bread, kind of like a baguette type bread, dipped into egg and fried in olive oil and eaten as a snack. And so one theory goes that the Provençal workmen would go to these working class cafes in Paris and ask for croque, and the restaurant workers at a certain moment started to identify these men, these Provençal workers, as the croque monsieur. And oh, here comes the men who are going to order the croque. And I like that because, having worked in the restaurant business myself, I definitely remember identifying customers by the food that they ordered, right? There's Caesar salad, grilled shrimp on top coming in. There's tequila shot in his coffee coming in. If you know. So I think that's a pretty a likely enough etymology of the term croque monsieur, although we don't, it's just a guess. And the story of Michel Lunarca, the claim of cannibalism, I think probably, he was probably trying to create his own legend or mythology around the term, and it worked because his cafe had a huge success, and a lot of people for a long time considered his cafe to be the original, the first croque monsieur, but we know that's not true. So one final note before we get to the recipe itself, which is the bechamel. So when I made it, I did the smallest proportion possible for bechamel, which is with 1 cup of milk, and even then I had a lot left over. So if you make it, I recommend actually doubling and tripling the recipe and saving the bechamel and using it for other things. Bechamel is just an incredibly widely used sauce. Many of you, if you've had fancy versions of macaroni and cheese, you've had bechamel already. It's used in a lot of lasagna recipes. It's used in any kind of gratin. So, for example, one that's really delicious is you blanch cauliflower. So get a whole cauliflower, chop it up, blanch it for about 2 minutes in hot water, strain it, put it in the bottom of a baking pan, pour the bechamel on top, grate Swiss cheese, put it in the oven at 425 for about half an hour, or until the cheese becomes bubbly and brown, and you've got a delicious gratin. And you substitute that with tomatoes, zucchinis, potatoes, any kind of vegetable really, or pasta, and you get the point. There's a lot you can do with bechamel and cheese on top of it. There's also some non-French recipes. So in Greece, moussaka, so eggplant with some various kinds of sauce with bechamel on top and then baked. It's just absolutely delicious. And also pastitsio, which is another Greek baked dish with bechamel on top, but it's like a baked pasta dish. And in Spain, there's one of my favorite appetizers is croquetas, which are imagine bechamel with chopped up ham or various other things, but the classic is ham. And you let the bechamel congeal overnight, and then you shape it into a quenelle shape, like a kind of elongated oval type shape. And you roll it in breadcrumbs and deep fry it and serve it hot, and it is just absolutely delicious. So those are called croquetas or croquettes. And that ended up creating a Japanese variant. So there's a Japanese croquette that's Also absolutely delicious, and also uses bechamel. So bechamel is a global sauce in that sense. So okay, let's get to the video. So we're going to start by making the bechamel, and you're going to need 2 tablespoons of butter, 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, 1 cup of milk, and optional but recommended a bay leaf and some grated nutmeg, and then salt and pepper to taste. This recipe is very easy to scale up. So for example, if you quadruple the recipe, you're going to need 4 cups of milk, a half cup of AP flour, and a half cup of butter. So start by getting your milk into a small saucepan and throw in a bay leaf and some grated nutmeg in there, and let it simmer for about 5 minutes at a very low temperature. You don't want it to get to a boil, you just want to get those aromatics infused into the milk. I swap in a new saucepan and turn the heat up to medium and put in the butter, and once the butter melts, I add the flour and whisk it until the flour starts to smell a little bit cooked, so that raw flour smell goes away, and it starts to turn a little bit golden brown. I used whole wheat flour in this on the video, so it looks browner than it should, so don't use this image as a guide, sorry about that. And then as soon as it's reached that kind of golden color, add the hot milk and stir until it thickens, keeping in mind that it will continue to thicken after you pull it off the heat. So you want it to just start to thicken up. You don't want it to turn into glop. Okay, so now we're going to make a sunny side up egg. The trick with sunny side up eggs is to always start to use a non-stick pan and start at a very high temperature. So get your stovetop, get your burner onto medium high, and let the pan heat up before you add the oil and crack the egg in there. And as soon as you crack the egg, immediately turn it down to the lowest possible setting, and give it anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes to cook until the egg whites are no longer raw. At this point, I test the egg whites with my finger and I see that they're almost but not quite done, so I put them on for another 2 minutes until they're done and remove from the stovetop. So next we're going to assemble and grill the sandwich. So assemble it by layering some bechamel sauce, some ham and cheese. You decide what proportions you prefer. And then I just assemble it right in the non-stick frying pan and move it to the grill, to the stovetop, and at about a medium-low temperature, not too hot. Grill it on both sides until you get a nice golden brown color. So once you have this nice crispy grilled ham and cheese sandwich, you're going to spread a fairly generous layer of bechamel on top, and then either grate cheese or put some slices of cheese. I happen to have some sliced Tillamook Swiss cheese, so I use that on top, and put it into the broiler. I have an air fryer, so I used my air fryer at the broil setting for 4 minutes. It was not quite enough. It needed another 2 minutes before it came out looking perfectly bubbly and golden the way I like it. Okay, at this point you're ready to plate the Croque Madame. So move the Croque Madame to a plate, and then with the spatula, move the sunny side up egg that you've set aside on top of the sandwich. And I like to serve it with some fresh vegetables just to cut the heaviness of the bechamel and the ham and the cheese. So here I've got some sliced cucumber and some home fermented red cabbage that went very nicely with the sandwich. That's it. Bon appetit!